And welcome back to the Hot Lap, where we are talking F1 news. Yep, let's get straight into those headlines. As you can see above me, the first headline, Max to Aston Martin. Could it be possible? Max Verstappen to Aston Martin. Well, there are rumours. I still think he's going to stay at Red Bull, but we'll get into that. Also, Mercedes and their big weakness. It's going to be fast corners. We have them at Silverstone, Japan coming up quite soon, for example, as well. And, well, a lot of other circuits, Belgium, they're going to have to really sort that out. Also, Newey staying put despite or in spite of rumours that he's going to Ferrari. People have come out and said, no, he's not. Bearman to Haas, though, that seems a bit more stronger, and I think you'd probably agree with me after his performance than Newey to Haas. And last but not least, the pressure is on for Daniel Ricciardo as Marko, as in Helmet Marko, is putting the pressure on. This guy needs to improve. Bear in mind, though, it's only been 2 races. Bit unfair? I don't know, but first of all, let's talk about Max to Aston Martin. Yes, so it says here, why Aston Martin could beat Mercedes to sign the 3, let's be fair, probably 4-time world champion-elect. And as we know, Verstappen really walk away from that Red Bull contract. I don't think he will, because it's a guaranteed 2025 championship, more than likely. However, he must be aware, regulations from 25 to 26, that could change everything, couldn't it? As we knew, from 2013 Red Bull to 2014 Mercedes, yes, it is new engine regulations, but they're still keeping the ground effect, so it could be quite interesting. Is he going to make the move? And then they were saying here, just a few weeks ago, it was inconceivable that he's even going to leave the dominant team of Red Bull that him and Red Bull have set so many records. However, this whole Christian Horner thing has turned things upside down, and it says that the full details are yet to emerge, but the picture being painted is a simple one. And Verstappen doesn't want to stay if Horner remains in charge, is the rumours. And it was March in 22 that Verstappen signed a contract extension that committed him to the team for 7 seasons, one of the longest ones I think we've ever had in Formula 1. Both parties decided that the time was right to extend, and there we go. Crucially, though, it says the term included the first 3 seasons of the new F1 regulations with the new Red Bull powertrains engine, which at the time was expected, as we all thought, to be badged as Porsche. It wasn't. And it was a commitment of an unprecedented length on both sides. And as we know, it was Ford who stepped up and not Porsche. But it says here, 2 years on from that signing and having secured 3 titles, and as we say, a 4th and very likely, the chances of them seeing out the remaining 4 years of that deal, it says, appear to be slim. Now, Horner's own words are very telling. It said, on race day in Bahrain, he was adamant that Verstappen was not going to go anywhere. When asked if Verstappen is going to see out his contract, Horner replied by saying, I'm certain that he will. He's got a great team around him. He's got great faith in that team. We've achieved an awful lot together. He's committed to an agreement until 2028. But just a week later in Jeddah, he still insisted Verstappen had no reason to leave. However, there were signs that the mood had changed. The tide had turned. You can never say never, he said. If a driver doesn't want to be somewhere, then they'll go somewhere else. But as a team, I can't see any reason why anyone would want to step out of this team. Okay, in terms of their performance, I completely agree. But he was then pressed on the subject, and he said, it's like anything in life. You can't force somebody to be somewhere just because of a piece of paper. If somebody didn't want to be at this team, then we're not going to force somebody against their will to be here. That applies whether it's a machine operator, designer, or somebody in one of the other support functions. So the article goes on to say that there are many forces at work along with the complex Horner-Marko situation. No one knows who will have the best engine in 2026, but it's obvious that it's going to be a much tougher challenge for both Red Bull powertrain / Ford, which are still kind of newcomers, because if you remember, it's the Honda architecture that currently powers the Red Bull team, and they'll be taking that knowledge to Aston Martin. And then obviously we've got Audi as well, which is they may face a much greater uphill struggle than even Red Bull powertrains. But in other words, the article is saying it's going to be a major reset. And in addition, there's a natural cycle on F1 that sees the best drivers make their name and earn their first major successes with the team that nurtured them before leaving the nest and going to pastures new, a la Lewis Hamilton, McLaren to Mercedes. And they use the examples of Michael Schumacher to Benetton, Alonso and Renault, Lewis Hamilton and McLaren, plus Sebastian Vettel and Red Bull. So that's where it's going to be quite interesting. I still think he'll stay, personally. And we have a lot of, headlines that are very attractive and make it very exciting to read. But fingers crossed, time is going to tell. Is there going to also be another loop, another peel of the onion in the Red Bull saga? Who knows? So, big Mercedes changes, Mercedes issues, let's say. This is from racefans.net. A Mercedes high-speed weakness is something fundamental we need to dig into. Yes, and as we know, that Mercedes is not been performing as everyone thought it was going to perform out of testing. I mean, it's not been particularly good, has it? And in respect of testing, they were a lot more positive than they are talking now. And it says here, Mercedes believe that the cause of their car's performance in those high-speed corners is, and this is quite concerning, something fundamental to its design. Yeah, exclamation marks there. He said the team's drivers found it difficult to stay close to their rivals through the quickest corners at Jeddah. And it says here, fundamentally, the limitations that we had in qualifying in the race were broadly the same for both. And that's from Andrew Shovelin, Mercedes Trackside Engineering Director. He went on to say, and this is the video published by the team, so it's telling you it's not a small difference, it's not a tiny bit of camber or a spring or bar here and there. It's something more fundamental that we need to dig into and understand. But this is the team that was saying, it all correlates with the simulations from the Bahrain testing. And then it suddenly didn't. And then we had the issues in Bahrain with the overheating, so we kind of gave Mercedes a reprieve. But now we've gone to Saudi thinking they're going to be a lot faster, potentially even the second best team. We even predicted a podium for Hamilton, but he was nowhere near a podium. And the team has identified three main reasons why their car couldn't keep up with the competition. He said, Shovelin was saying, one of them was the balance wasn't great. So there were those fast corners, the walls aren't particularly far away, the ones where the driver, they need a lot of confidence, and quite often they were snapping oversteer if they really leant on those tyres. You can easily imagine how unsettling that was. And they also said in qualifying, we were also suffering a bit with the bouncing. There was less of a problem in the race. There's more fuel in the car, you're going slower, and that seemed to calm it down, and it wasn't such an issue. Then the big one, they're saying, is not having enough grip. So that's one of the things we are working on this week, because Melbourne has a similar nature on the corners, and we're doing a lot of work to try and understand why we do not seem to have the grip of some of our close competitors. And the significant thing is, the last 2 years that Mercedes has been, let's be fair, possibly the second or third fastest car in Melbourne. They've done very, very well in Melbourne. Last year, I do believe, I think they were the second fastest car in Melbourne. They even took the lead. And Wolf has also come out, and he has said, the German, as we know, they've had a challenging start to the season, and Wolf has said that although there is potential for 2024 to mark a third consecutive year of Mercedes trying to get on top of their issues, Motorsport.com is reporting that Wolf said, I've changed my mindset. He said, I don't think that additional pressure on us makes it all better. I think we have a problem with the physics. It's not by lack of trying or by the mindset or by the motivation or energies. All of that is there, and I can see the buzz in the organisation. As Ray says, when we have such disappointing results, he's going on that they're feeling down, but they're trying to change that with the right motivation for the week that comes. That's why we are believing that we can turn this around. We believe that our organisation can dig ourselves out. I'm 100% sure we can. Completely. I have faith. But I guess it's waned a tiny bit from 22 and 23, because they're very similar words to what they were saying last year and the year before. So, yeah. Adrian Newey. So, there were lots of reports that Adrian Newey was going to sign for Ferrari. If you believe some, he'd almost signed and was about to go, and it was going to be announced as in like yesterday, but it didn't. And now, it says here from planetf1.com, in recent days, rumours that Adrian Newey is set to leave Red Bull gained momentum. The ongoing turmoil with Red Bull and their parent company this internal civil war, which is also including the Verstappens, if you believe it. But there was suggestions that it even got Adrian Newey upset. And over the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, the situation threatened to boil over as Motorsport's Red Bull's Helmut Marko revealed that he could be suspended. And it led to Max Verstappen making very public statements about his loyalty to Marko, and it wouldn't be a good thing if he was. Now, Marko arrived in the paddock on Friday with Oliver Mintzlaff. He, who is the Red Bull GmbH CEO, think of him as the boss of the Austrian side. And he confirmed that he has every intent of seeing out his 3-year contract. That was Marko. But that hasn't stopped suggestions that Adrian Newey, the legendary car designer, could be going, but these rumours that have suggested that he's unhappy with the turmoil is not the case, and he's happy redesigning that RB17 car, and that there are no concerns with Red Bull. So I guess stay tuned. Having said that, if I was Aston Martin, if I was Mercedes, if I was Ferrari, it would potentially be blank check time to get Newey to sign on the dotted line, I think. I mean, this guy, one of the most important people in Formula One. He's the Colin Chapman of our era, surely. So Bearman to Haas. Yes, Oliver Bearman, the 18-year-old sensation that had an absolutely fantastic debut, could be going to Haas. And after a starring role in Ferrari Saudi Arabia as what's been described by Sky Sports as an 11th hour stand-in, Oliver Bearman hopes his first full-time F1 seat is now not too far away. And he's even said it would be fantastic if he landed that Haas drive, which looks better than it did at the beginning of the season, thinking they're going to be the slowest car. But they are, I think, at the moment, getting the most out of their package. And they scored a point in Saudi, albeit somewhat controversially. But Bearman says he's hopeful a door could open for him to drive for Haas in Formula 1 next season. As we know, he claimed pole in the Formula 2 race in Saudi Arabia. Sadly, he didn't start there because he replaced Carlos Sainz. With only 60 minutes of practice, he took P11 on the grid and ended up finishing 7th. So it says Bearman's mature showing has put him in contention for a permanent seat in 2025, where change to the F1 drivers lineup seems almost certain, with more than half the grid out of contract at the end of the year. And asked about his prospects, he said, "I don't know what else I can do, because I don't think I'll be in F1 for the rest of the year. We do believe Carlos Sainz will be ready for Spain, but that's not a guarantee." He says, "So that's my goal, to do a great showing this weekend. I think I did a decent job, so that's all right, and that's all I can do. Pushing an F2, crossing my fingers, that's it." And they went on to saying the most likely landing spot is going to be Haas, and he drove for them in 2 practice sessions last season, and Haas were very impressed with what he did, particularly compared to Hülkenberg. Now, the American-owned team shared a close relationship with Ferrari. As you may or may not know, they supply Ferrari's engines, gearbox and other parts, all within the F1 technical regulations, kind of similar to what RB do in Red Bull. "And I have a lot of practices with Haas this year," he said, "so I'm looking forward to building up a relationship and gaining more miles, and hopefully a door could open there for 2025. That would be fantastic." It would, wouldn't it? So, from happy news to slightly more concerning-ish, and it says here, Helmut Marko turns up the heat on Daniel Ricciardo. The Australian has to come up with something soon, is what Helmut says. And as we know, he's been drafted into AlphaTauri following the decision to get rid of Nick de Vries, and then sadly at the Dutch Grand Prix broke his hand. He returned from the United States Grand Prix despite much support of a lot of media. Ricciardo's best result was in Mexico, and he was 7th, but he had a really good qualifying. And then Liam Lawson, who had taken over Ricciardo's car much the same way that Oliver Bearman did particularly good. And meanwhile, the media dreamed of an anti-podium lineup for the Italian squad. Yuki Tsunoda has raised his game and came within a hair's breadth of leapfrogging Williams in that Constructors' Championship. In the opening 2 races, Tsunoda has both out-qualified, and you could make an argument, outraced him at least in Saudi for both events, but made Daniel Ricciardo look quite ordinary. And describing his lack of pace in Jeddah as a mystery, Ricciardo admitted to making a mistake in the race, which caused him to spin. That was towards the end. Now, despite ongoing in the Red Bull camp, but some eyeing a return to the big team, Christian Horner's a big fan. Apparently, Helmut Marko is not, rumoured. And Helmut Marko has warned the Australian to raise his game. The clear inference being that De Vries was dropped last season. Liam Lawson is waiting in the wings. And he said there's a lot at stake this season for both Yuki and Daniel. Yuki's qualifying was very good, and Ricciardo has to come up with something soon. And he went on to say, the shade is still continuing. At least Tsunoda is very good in qualifying. Then we are in the points in the first stint, only to fall further behind afterwards. Whether they are putting too much strain on the tyres or there are other reasons is what you need to find out. And he said, the reason I'm staying optimistic, so a bit of positivity, is because I know that we have something's wrong, said Ricciardo. Just days ahead of his home race with a good car and everything sorted, I know we can do better. A painful 3 days, but I don't want to take any confidence out of us. And as we know, he's got his home race coming up, Australia. Fingers crossed for Danny Ricciardo to return to form and score some points. That would be qualify in the top 10 if you can. Failing that, qualify near the top 10, score those points. That would be amazing. If you made it to the end, like and subscribe if you can. I try and comment on all your comments. And thank you so much for watching, liking, anything. Really, really appreciated. And stay tuned for more F1 news, BTCC, rally, etc.